Ladies and gentlemen, it's already gotten so warm that I wish I could take my blazer off while doing this, but unfortunately anchor courtesies demand so. Thankfully, I have air conditioners in the studio. Maybe you have them as well. But don't you think the usage of air conditioners has come rather early this year? If your answer is yes, you're not alone. And spare a thought for the underprivileged who do not have the luxury of an air conditioner, which is increasingly becoming a necessity. March is feeling like May, and this isn't even the beginning of the worst. Our cities are creating records that we are not proud of. The mercury is rising in ways that even ice cream vendors are complaining about. In Delhi, February turned out to be the hottest the national capital had seen in 74 years. Mumbai too isn't taking any breaks, enduring not one but two heat waves in March. The heat isn't playing any favorites. In the rest of Maharashtra and in neighboring Goa, residents have also witnessed heat waves kicking off as early as the 25th of February. If you thought that was bad, climate models are painting a hotter picture. It seems the forecast isn't just about a few extra degrees. Experts warn that we are in for longer, more intense heat waves than ever before. If you notice, this time the winter wasn't that bad and wasn't so long. As a result, Indian cities are facing prolonged, almost lethal bouts of heat with rising temperatures, sparking the notorious urban heat island effect. Our farms are sweating too as agriculture suffers under the relentless sun, and water scarcity is worsening in the wake of these unprecedented heat extremes. Heat waves in February and March are rather unheard of, but unfortunately they are now becoming a reality. Between the 25th of Feb and the 23rd of March, IMD tells us that Maharashtra endured a staggering 8 days of heat wave. Gujarat wasn't far behind with 6, Odisha experienced 4, Jharkhand experienced 2, and Goa, Karnataka, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, Telangana all saw 1 day of extreme heat. So why are these heat waves arriving so early? That's because of a dry winter, rainfall paired with a prolonged dry season, shifting atmospheric patterns and persistent high-pressure systems, a delayed onset of the monsoon that is leaving us high and dry, and let's not forget the sweating elephant in the room, which is the urban heat island effect. The continuous burn from fossil fuel emissions isn't helping the situation either. Heat waves like never before experienced are real and fast approaching. But are we ready? The answer is a big fat no. The reality on the ground is that long-term heatwave actions are rarely implemented with immediate responses. Are common, but they're just band-aids on a sunburned nation. Critical cooling and insurance measures are missing completely, leaving lower-income groups especially vulnerable. Add to that coordination failures and competing priorities, and it's clear that our infrastructure, especially our urban infrastructure, is not ready to tackle these blazing challenges. So we're going to have a very important discussion on Beyond the Headline tonight with my panel of guests who represent 4 very important stakeholders on this entire issue. I'm being joined by Gufran Beig, who's founder, project director of SAFAR, and he's of course one of India's top weather experts. Bhavrin Kandahari is also joining us. She's an environmentalist and member of My Right to Breathe. Dr. Sudhir Krishna is the former Secretary of Ministry of Urban Development, and Professor Anil Gupta is CEO of the Integrated Center for Adaptation, Disaster Resilience and Sustainability. Thank you all for joining me on this very important edition of Beyond the Headline. Let me start with you, Gufran Beig. Sir, take us through very simple reasons. Why is it so hot? Why is March beginning to feel like May? Not just in Delhi, Rajasthan, but even in states in the south, in the east, which are not used to facing such warm temperatures so early.
See, most of the things the broadly you described in your initial thing, but I will insist on a key reason for that. There is a phenomena called La Nina and El Nino, which is called an ENSO. Normally, it used to be discussed among us when the monsoon is coming. If monsoon is going to be good, it is going to be El Nino. Otherwise, it is La Nina. That's all. But then what is happening is where needle of suspicion goes to the climate change, that what happens basically in La Nina, El Nino, the wind circulation changes. Ocean either warms or it cools. And because of that, wind circulation changes. And once the wind circulation is changing, it is taking a lot of water and all those kind of things are there. But now what is happening is that this La Nina and El Nino is becoming a very erratic, unusual. and their frequency is increasing. Normally, it used to come for a few months, about 10 to 12 months in every 7 to 8 years. But now, almost one after another, La Nina, El Nino,
Okay.
La Nina, El Nino. We are now in a La Nina year, which is anyway going to be a neutral year. What is happening, although it is related with the colder ocean temperature, so the vapor should not come
Okay.
out. But what is happening is that the vapors are coming, the coastal region, western region, because of the deficit of the rain. Normally, there are no rains at all. January was Mumbai is the hottest year on record for last after 2005 or so. But then the point here is that there is no rain, which is accumulating a lot of dryness. And because of that, the moisture which is getting up are coming there towards the coastal region and making two things. One is that it is increasing the temperature with the increased humidity. So the point here which I wanted to make is that although the temperature may not look like that it is a heat wave, but since it is a huge humidity, you feel like that is really a heat wave. And obviously, frequency of heat waves are increasing, which is what is the major reason. And this is, mind you, that this is specifically in western coastal region is going to increase in the time to come.
So you're saying, so Gufran Beig, you're saying that it's not just the absolute temperatures which are the cause of concern, but also the twin problems which are contradictory but still exist of extreme dry build-ups to the summer followed by extreme humidity. Guwahati and Kandahari,
Right, exactly.
if you look, this was one of the driest winter. This is one of the driest winters we have seen in several years, and the consensus here in the national capital was that this barely felt like a winter. It felt like it got over before it was, and it was very dry as well. What are the environmental factors, especially when it comes to our urban infrastructure or in terms of the environmental policies that governments have put in place? Are they to blame, or are we just looking at climate change, which is inevitable at this moment?
Well, absolutely, Ritangshu. Thank you for saying that, because I guess we cannot just completely blame climate change. This is not just a seasonal phenomenon. Now it's a result of extremely long-term environmental degradation, which you can also call it climate change in certain ways, and unplanned urbanization. So you cannot be thinking that you can solve this problem without aggressive mitigation and adaptation strategies, or expecting that the heat waves will subside with that. You cannot be cutting 5 trees an hour in a city that is already fighting air pollution and fighting various other ways of the complete the heat island effect, etc. So this is it's just that the complete effect and the impact, studies have to come together now in terms of action and in terms of the, like you said, the policies and the implementation that needs, whether it is the depleting groundwater or the drying rivers. So again, there is a huge amount of, there's excessive, groundwater extraction. There is shrinking water bodies. But of course, besides, doing more on making websites and, everyone proving a point, not much is being done on the ground. Similarly, on the deforestation, the land use changes, there's mining, agricultural expansion. They've all reduced basically the natural cooling mechanisms, which were supposed to, help, the planet, the Earth, our own, city, heat action, mitigation theories. So the complete loss of tree cover, the water bodies, the green spaces, these are all things that are being said over and over again. But obviously, in the name of development, and now a new term called redevelopment has taken over a toll on cities and our even the urban area, the rural areas as well. So it's now if you see the monsoons, whether it is like even Mr. Beig just said, there's the delayed monsoons or the erratic monsoons, or that you're getting rain worth of months on one day. These are the kind of or weak monsoons. Everything is now it's a complete fallout. It's something that it's already now showing. It's completely it's a complete evidence. There's nothing more needed. So the heat action plans that, of course, have been, we've administratively brought in some heat action plans, etc. But these plans have to now be implemented in terms of policies that should be brought in
Okay.
day to day. It starts in your own communities. It should start. Say, for example, even the water conservation. We have various laws, etc. on water harvesting, but what is actually being done on the ground? Nothing. So you can have court orders and you can have various policies, but until they're not implemented in letter and spirit, nothing is going to change. And as we know, the Earth's temperature has already
We have
risen due
seen,
to
and
greenhouse
Bhavrin, we have
emissions,
seen this
etc.
in many ways, this policy paralysis that exists over taking affirmative action climate. We have seen them in a microcosm every November during the smog. Now, what we often forget, once the smog lifts and once Delhi gets blessed with better air as it's currently dealing with, is that the policy paralysis and the myopic attitudes of the authorities continue, even on long-term issues such as heat action plans, as you mentioned, which require a lot more sustained action throughout the year. I will come to this point also to to Professor Anil Gupta on heat action plan. But before that, I want to address this issue of why is it so much hotter in our cities, Dr. Sudhir Krishna. One term that came up, I mentioned it in my intro as well, it's something that's been doing the rounds, is urban heat islands here. A term where our cities have become so concretized in terms of concrete jungles that they just absorb. You see these massive high rises which have come up in Gurgaon, in Greater Noida, in Faridabad. We just absorb more heat during the day and retain it during the night, which means it feels a lot more hotter than it actually is. Now the point is, with rapid population expansion and urbanization, we cannot stop the construction of these concrete jungles, but it's clearly coming at a cost. These cities, these satellite towns which are being expanded, are becoming heat traps in many ways.
Well, I think, as you have said, that urbanization is inevitable. And the country is, economically, we are growing, we are expanding, and the economic growth is accompanied with massive urbanization. So there is no way we can stop it. Only thing is we have to be careful, and there are guidelines also. Along with urbanization, we are having motorization also. India is manufacturing 2.5 crore motor vehicles per year, and population growth is less than around half of that. So we are producing more vehicles than we are producing people. As a result, we are having cities full of motor vehicles, and also, as you mentioned, concretization is also an issue. And thirdly, the power supply situation is also not, stable. So people are using a lot of DG sets also, diesel generator sets, which also is adding to the problem. But solutions are also in place. The solution, as one panelist has just mentioned, there is a guideline of the heat action plans. The heat action plans are to be prepared. Ahmedabad was the first city that had prepared the heat action plan way back in 2013, and subsequently many more cities have prepared and many more have to prepare. Now, what the heat action plan says is that we should construct the building, but we should follow the green building norms. There are norms for green building which are in the National Building Code, and the municipalities have to adopt them in their building bylaws, which many have done. But somehow the development is moving much faster than what the actions are being taken. Now, water bodies have to be rejuvenated, whether it is the lakes or whether it is the nalas and rivers around, and also the greens have to improve. The avenue plantations have to be thicker avenue plantations. The park should have patches of thick green, Miyawaki plantations. These are all in the
Okay.
guidelines. Cities are doing also, but they are not doing enough. Funds are not a constraint under various programs of the various ministries, starting with Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, then Ministry of Environment and Forest, Ministry of Jal Shakti. Enough funds are available, and not to miss out on the Finance Commission grants and so on and so forth. Enough resources are available. Only thing is municipalities have to gear up. They have to gear up their situation. Small local actions are also
Okay.
required, like the public transportation system has to improve, and we have to reduce the school timings can change little bit, in summer season school timings can change. So there are local actions along with better planning. everything is possible. I mean, we should not be
But these are
we should not be nervous about urbanization. Urbanization is leading the country to development path, and we have to encourage urbanization, planned urbanization. So I would
But Dr.
recommend the
Krishna, with all due
municipalities to.
respect, those measures you suggested, and while yes, citizen-driven measures are very important as well, they're mitigatory at best. And to what extent, I mean, how long can you, to what point of the day is not hot anymore for a small student to go to school at this point? If you change the calendar, to what point, which part of the year is not hot anymore? So there are larger issues at play. Dr. Anil Gupta, you're someone who understands the importance of disaster resilience and sustainability a lot. Is it because that fundamentally we don't look at heat waves or the rise in temperature as a disaster on par with, say, a flood or an earthquake or a tsunami, which is why we tend to underestimate it? Tomorrow, if an earthquake strikes, God forbid, if an earthquake strikes a major city, there will be a lot of immediate knee-jerk reaction that will take place in terms of policies and policy implementations. But somehow with the heat wave, we just tend to see it as, oh, it's part of summer, what do we do?
I would partly agree and partly disagree with you. As the previous speakers also referred to, the serious initiatives from the government side. But there are certain facts which need to be agreed to. The Shri Gufran Beig was referring to the La Nina, this thing. But the heat wave has become a regular feature, not only in the La Nina year. And La Nina usually leads to the normal or near normal conditions. So that cannot, this situation of this year cannot be directly related with the La Nina. However, even if we are able to relate, we are relating this with the climatic phenomena, we need to agree, we also should also agree that there is a lot to be done with the non-climatic actors, which Sudhir Krishnaji was referring to. And the third point, that many cities and many states in India have prepared the heat action plans, which are of very good quality, and the governments are trying to implement also, and they have implemented. That is the reason the mortality, deaths because of heat wave has come down gradually. But now what is required more, and where the focus has to be, one is that the local action, and not only local action, basically the anticipatory action. If we just start preparing for the heat when the month of March every year is on, and then we start talking about heat, probably that will not be enough, because then it will be always a shorter measure. So we have to think round the year. Even if we are doing any kind of developmental activity during the month of August or September or October, we need to be careful that whether it is going to contribute towards the seriousness of the scorching heat conditions in the summer. Do we really think that? I think that is very much
Dr.
needed,
Gupta,
and that is the reason
if the response to a heat wave has to be round a year, if the response to heat waves has to be round the year, if the response to, for instance, smog, which we see in Delhi, has to be round the year as well, because we are seeing dust and smog even during summers, not just in October, November as well. This indicates that we need to really perhaps ramp up a comprehensive climate policy which doesn't look at the picture in terms of just seasons, and looks at a comprehensive, round-the-clock, multi-organization, multi-nodal effort.
Precisely. In fact, that is very much needed. As what I referred to, that there are several changes. The patterns that we were seeing past 25, 30 years, in the recent 10 years or 15 years, even the drought, for example, the heat waves always also connected with the drought-related phenomenon also. Drought we were considering earlier as a creeping phenomenon. Now there are incidences of flash drought, like sudden depletion of the soil moisture level, sudden depletion of the humidity, and that is what we are experiencing now. So basically, we need to be proactive in understanding these kind of things, and not only understanding the patterns, but realization that something which is unprecedented, something which is not normal, can take place. So I think that's very important, and preparing for
you mentioned flash drought. That's, of course, I mean, what comes to me is the paradox of what happens in Chennai, which has to deal with floods too often in November, December, and has to deal with an acute water shortage in the summer months. Bhavrin, we have been talking about heat action plans. A recent study, which is going to probably be published in the Indian Express tomorrow, covering 9 major cities, found that there were key problems in terms of long-term resilience strategies. Some of the shortcomings it mentioned was lack of cooling infrastructure for vulnerable populations, no insurance coverage for lost work due to extreme heat, and electricity grids remaining underprepared for increased power demand. Are these some of the important things which perhaps we are seeing a pan-India problem and not a city-based problem which perhaps requires a unified approach, or would you still say a city-based heat action plan is perhaps the best suited?
Yes, surely every city is different. Even in a city, certain areas are different. Their chemistry, their regions are all very different. The infrastructure is different. So there it needs city action plans, and it's not it's not doable, like even for air pollution to have limited attainment cities. Again, for heat action plan to have just a few cities, that's not going to help. Every city should be involved in their own action plan. And like, again, I repeat that action plan doesn't have to be an action plan, a draft on a paper. It needs to be implemented in every policy, even the most basic, like you said, the municipality, the community level. It needs to start there and then, whether it's water, whether it's agriculture, or whether it is your forestation. It's not about planting trees. It's about protecting the tree cover. It's protecting the forests. It's about protecting like in Delhi, your Ravalis and the ridge, which you're bent upon destroying, and then complaining later on heat action, etc. So the lack of proper cooling infrastructure, and like you said, the poor housing quality, the limited public awareness. Also, I mean, last year also there was some very, very sad incidents of where a woman in Madhya Pradesh, she lost both her children because they walked so much in the heat to buy some medicine, and the two children died. This is not acceptable. They need to be these kind of disaster relief workshops, etc., need to be done through the organizations and civil society, etc., because people need to know, they need to have electrolytes.
Okay. Dr. Krishna, very quickly,
small measures that will come in. Yeah, but yeah. So
okay. Speaking of small measures, Dr. Krishna, you mentioned about citizen-centric.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just go to quickly rush through closing comments. Dr. Krishna, you mentioned citizen efforts, or at least local efforts. The problem still is that our solution still to the heat is perhaps to throw in more money. If it's too hot, we get an AC, we get another AC for a bedroom. We ensure that a car has AC as well. We are not aware of the long-term strategies in order to try and actually take care of something which is going to be, unfortunately, a part of our lives going forward. What can we do? 3 very quick steps that every citizen can do to manage the heat from a policy perspective.
Yeah. No, as far as citizens are concerned, I mean, we cannot expect them to do so much except that they should cooperate with the government. But, if there is heat in the house, they have to buy an air conditioner. We can't expect that they should not. Or if the power is not there, DG set, they have to buy a DG set, and that will generate heat. So a lot is on the municipalities and to prepare a proper city plan, and it will impact a lot of impact, along with the other authorities like public transportation system, avenue plantation, proper power supply, and the building designs, proper control of building designs, solar panels everywhere as far as possible, which will reflect the sunlight and also generate energy, green space improvement, water bodies protection. All these are, it's part of good city plan. Good city planning is required. It is not difficult. It doesn't cost so much money. And if it costs money, it is available also. We require good leadership at city level, which is somewhat missing.
So you say the solutions are available.
Absolutely.
Dr. Krishna, you say the solutions are available. It's just a question of application, and perhaps this will jolt. Gufran Beig, I'll come to you for the last word. And perhaps it's not a word I should leave our viewers on, but a very simple question. How much worse is it going to be this year in terms of absolute temperatures? How bad can we expect this heat to be this summer?
I will provide very brief 2 points. Number one is that it is going to be intensified. This summer is going to be prolonged. It will prolong, and it is going to be intense, and there is a likelihood of heat waves, number of episodes. In fact, last 20 years, just 12 heat episodes when you see in a coastal area, but it is going to be within 1 or 2 years, this much is going to be there, number one. But the most important thing in terms of a solution I have been hearing But the biggest lacuna what we are having, we are talking about a city-centric heat wave plan or air pollution plan. It is not going to work. An integrated airshed management, which is a region which which shares a common climatology, whether it is an air pollution issue, whether it is a heat wave issue, or any other issue. It is all so in an integrated resource framework which should deal airshed as a single entity rather than looking at the state boundaries with a political angle. This is something which need to be done. Otherwise,
there are a lot of
and then you will not be able
so there are a lot of key
to
suggestions coming in from our stakeholders, and perhaps yes, we at Mirror now are sometimes a bit guilty of making it urban centric because we are of course dealing with the viewers who come from urban India. But as you said, the problems may be urban centric, but the solutions might not necessarily be. Gufran Beig, thank you so much for joining us. Also, thank you Bhavreen and also Dr. Sudhir Krishna and Professor Anil Gupta for joining us in this short. But we hope to not have these discussions, but I have a feeling we'll be having these debates a lot more in a very punishing summer to come. Thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Headline. On the other side, news and updates continue. Stay tuned.